A millionaire visited his black ex-wife and son after 8 years and changed their life overnight. One morning, without warning, he shows up at their doorstep. The ex-wife who's been working 2 jobs just to survive. The 8-year-old son who's never known his father's face. But this isn't just a sudden change of heart. Behind the expensive suit and successful smile lies a devastating secret, one that explains his sudden return. As the son begins to bond with the father he never knew, the mother faces an impossible choice. Protect her heart or give him the second chance he's begging for. What she doesn't know is that time is running out. Every moment together could be their last. When the truth finally comes to light, nothing will ever be the same. But is forgiveness possible after 8 years of abandonment? And can love truly heal what time and betrayal have broken? The alarm blared at 5 a.m., and Naomi Carter's hand shot out from under the worn quilt to silence it. Another day, another struggle. She rubbed her tired eyes and forced herself to sit up. The small bedroom was cold. The heater had been acting up again, and she couldn't afford to fix it yet. Just 2 more weeks until payday, she mumbled to herself. At 29, Naomi's face still held the beauty that had once turned heads, but years of exhaustion had added lines around her eyes. Her dark skin glowed even without makeup, and her curly hair was pulled back in a practical bun. She tiptoed to the next room, where 8-year-old Micah slept peacefully. His small face was the spitting image of his father, something that used to pain her but now just seemed like a fact of life. She gently brushed his forehead with her lips. "Rise and shine, baby." "Mama's got an early shift." Micah stirred, his intelligent eyes fluttering open. "Is it morning already?" "Afraid so. Mrs. Jenkins will be here in 20 minutes to take you to school. Your breakfast is on the table." Their morning routine was down to a science. While Micah ate his cereal, Naomi put on her pale blue home care nurse uniform. Her first client was an elderly woman just 10 minutes away. After that shift ended at 2 p.m., she'd clean 3 houses in Riverdale Heights, the rich neighborhood where people like her ex-husband lived, Julian Maddox. Even thinking his name still caused a pang in her chest after 8 years. "Mom?" Micah's voice broke through her thoughts. "Is Dad ever going to visit us?" The question caught her off guard. Micah rarely asked about his father anymore. "What brought this up?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral. Tyler's dad came back from working overseas. He brought him a real astronaut helmet. Tyler said sometimes dads come back. Naomi sighed and sat beside her son. "Baby, your father and I—" "It's complicated. He sends money to help us, but he's very busy with his company. Does he even know what I look like?" The innocent question broke her heart. "I send him your school pictures every year," she lied. The truth was, the child support checks came through his lawyer. Julian had never once asked for a photo. After Mrs. Jenkins arrived to watch Micah, Naomi headed out to her first job. The day passed in a blur of medications, cleaning supplies, and aching feet. By the time she dragged herself home at 7 p.m., all she wanted was a hot shower and sleep. What she got instead was the shock of her life. As she approached her small rental house on the outskirts of Charleston, she noticed an expensive black car parked outside, the kind that cost more than she made in 2 years. "Probably at the wrong address," she muttered, fishing for her keys. But then she saw him. Julian Maddox was standing on her porch, wearing a tailored grey suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. At 32, he was even more handsome than she remembered. His warm brown skin was flawless, his shoulders broader, his presence commanding. Success had agreed with him. Naomi froze mid-step, her purse slipping from her fingers. "Hello, Naomi," he said, his deep voice sending unwanted shivers down her spine. "What are you doing here?" The words came out harsher than she intended, but she didn't care. "I needed to see you." "And Micah?" The sound of her son's name on his lips sent anger coursing through her veins. 8 years, Julian. 8 years without a phone call, a visit, nothing. And now you just show up on my doorstep. "I know I don't deserve anything," Julian said, his eyes sincere in a way she'd forgotten they could be. "But please, give me a chance to fix what I broke." Before she could respond, the front door opened. Mrs. Jenkins appeared with Micah behind her. "Sorry, Naomi, we heard voices and—" The older woman stopped short when she saw Julian, her eyes widening in recognition. Everyone in town knew who Julian Maddox was, the local boy who'd made it big in tech. Micah peered around Mrs. Jenkins. his curious eyes fixed on the stranger. Julian stared at his son for the first time, and the resemblance was unmistakable. Same eyes, same jawline, same curious expression. For a moment, the confident businessman seemed completely lost for words. "You're my dad, aren't you?" Micah asked quietly. The simple question hung in the air. Mrs. Jenkins looked uncomfortable. "I think I should go," she said, gathering her things. "Call me if you need me, Naomi." After she left, the three of them stood in awkward silence. "Yes," Julian finally answered. "I'm your father." Micah studied him with an intensity that belied his age. "So you have the same watch as the man in the magazine Mum keeps in her drawer." Naomi felt her cheeks burn. She'd kept that stupid business magazine with Julian on the cover, telling herself it was just to show Micah someday, not because she couldn't let go. "Can we talk inside?" Julian asked, his eyes never leaving Micah. Every instinct told Naomi to send him away, to protect herself and her son from more hurt, but the hope in Micah's eyes made that impossible. 20 minutes, she said firmly. "Then you leave." Inside, the contrast between Julian's obvious wealth and her modest home was painful. His watch alone could probably pay her rent for a year. He sat awkwardly on her second-hand couch while Micah perched on the edge of the armchair, studying him. "Why did you leave us?" Micah asked bluntly. Julian looked taken aback by the direct question. I was young and stupid. I thought I needed to chase success more than anything else." "And did you catch it?" Micah asked. A small smile touched Julian's lips. "I caught the wrong thing, it turns out." Naomi remained standing, arms crossed. "Why are you really here, Julian?" He looked at her, and for a moment she saw the boy she'd fallen in love with at 19. Before his family had convinced him she wasn't good enough, before ambition had hardened him. "I've changed, Naomi. It took too long, but I've changed, and I want to know my son, just like that. After 8 years, you snap your fingers and expect to be welcomed into our lives." Julian's expression grew serious. "I don't expect anything. I'm asking, hoping, but I understand if you say no." "I want him to stay," Micah interrupted. Both adults turned to look at him. "Just for a little while," Micah added. "I have questions." Naomi felt torn between protecting her son from inevitable disappointment and giving him what he clearly wanted. "It's not that simple, baby. Please, Mom?" The longing in Micah's voice was impossible to ignore. Julian reached into his jacket and pulled out a small wrapped package. "I brought you something, Micah. It's not much, but—" Micah took the gift hesitantly, then unwrapped it to reveal a small robot building kit. His eyes lit up. "This is the one from the science store. How did you know?" "Lucky guess," Julian said, but his eyes flicked to Naomi, who realized he must have done research before coming. "Can we build it now?" Micah asked. "That's enough for tonight," Naomi intervened. "It's a school night and you need your bath." Disappointment clouded Micah's face, but he didn't argue. "Will you still be here tomorrow?" he asked Julian. Julian looked at Naomi, clearly waiting for her permission. She wanted to say no, to protect her heart and Micah's from the inevitable moment when Julian would walk away again. But she couldn't deny her son this chance. "Your father can come back tomorrow afternoon," she said reluctantly. The smile that broke across Micah's face was worth the risk to her own heart. He hugged the robot kit to his chest and rushed to get ready for bed with more enthusiasm than she'd seen in months. When he was out of earshot, Naomi turned to Julian. "I'm doing this for him, not you. Don't make me regret it." "I won't," Julian promised. "And Naomi, there's something else I need to tell you. Not in front of Micah, but soon." His serious tone made her stomach tighten. "What is it?" "Not tonight. Tomorrow when we can talk privately." After Julian left, Naomi went to check on Micah. He was already in bed, the robot kit on his nightstand, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Mom," he asked as she tucked him in, "is he really going to come back tomorrow?" "He said he would," she answered carefully. "He seems nice." "Different from what I imagined." Naomi smoothed his hair. "People aren't always what they seem, baby. Remember that. Are you mad that he's here?" She chose her words carefully. "I'm surprised and a little worried. Because he hurt you before?" Sometimes Micah's perceptiveness startled her. "Yes, I won't let him hurt you again," he said with all the seriousness an 8-year-old could muster. Naomi smiled and kissed his forehead. "That's my job, not yours. Now get some sleep." Later, alone in her room, Naomi pulled out the magazine with Julian on the cover. "The tech world's golden boy," the headline read. There he was, looking confident and untouchable. Nothing like the uncertain young man who had walked away when she told him she was pregnant. What did he really want after all this time? And what was this something else he needed to tell her? The next morning, Naomi called in sick to both her jobs for the first time in years. She couldn't focus anyway. She spent the morning cleaning the already tidy house, trying to make it look less shabby. At exactly 3 p.m. there was a knock at the door. Julian stood there, more casually dressed today in expensive jeans and a simple button-down shirt. He held a large gift bag and what looked like groceries. "I thought maybe I could cook dinner," he said hesitantly. "I remember you used to love my pasta." The memory of their tiny apartment kitchen, Julian making pasta while she studied for nursing school exams, hit her unexpectedly. "Fine," she said. Stepping aside to let him in, Micah came running when he heard Julian's voice. "You came back!" The surprise and joy in his voice broke Naomi's heart all over again. How many times had he waited for this moment? "I promised, didn't I?" Julian said, handing him the gift bag. "This is to go with your robot kit." Inside was a complete set of advanced robotics components. Micah's eyes grew wide. "This is the professional set. It costs a lot of money." "Well, I have 8 birthdays to make up for," Julian said softly. While Micah explored his gift, Julian set up in the kitchen. The domesticity of it felt surreal to Naomi, like they were playing house in some bizarre alternate reality. "When can we talk?" she asked quietly. "After dinner," he promised. "It's important." Throughout the meal, Naomi watched as Julian charmed Micah with stories of his travels and technology. Her son was completely captivated, asking intelligent questions that clearly impressed Julian. "You're really smart," Julian told him, "just like your mom was in school. Did you know she was top of our class?" "Really?" Micah looked at her with new appreciation. She was going to be a doctor before... Julian trailed off, realizing too late where that sentence led. "Before I had to drop out when I got pregnant with you," Naomi finished flatly. An uncomfortable silence fell. "I'm glad she's my mom," Micah finally said. "She's the best one." Julian's eyes met Naomi's across the table. "I have no doubt about that." After dinner, Micah begged to start on his robot kit with Julian's help. Naomi used the opportunity to clean up, trying to sort through her confused feelings. Part of her wanted to believe Julian had changed. Another part remembered the devastation of watching him walk away. Later, when Micah was finally in bed, Julian asked Naomi to sit with him on the porch. The night was mild, stars visible above the small yard. "He's amazing, Naomi. You've done an incredible job with him." "I had to," she said simply. Julian took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you. The real reason I came back now." Naomi steeled herself. "Let me guess. You're getting married and wanted to clear your conscience first?" "No," he said quietly. "I'm dying." The words hung in the space between them. Naomi stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "What?" "I've been diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's genetic, advanced stage. The doctors give me about a year, maybe less, without a transplant, and I'm not high on the list." Naomi, with her medical background, knew exactly what that meant. Her nurse's mind immediately clicked into gear. "Symptoms: shortness of breath, chest pain, fatigue. I collapsed at a board meeting last month. And there's no treatment? There are medications to manage it. I'm on several, but ultimately without a transplant." He let the sentence hang. Naomi felt like the ground had shifted beneath her. Whatever she'd expected, it wasn't this. "Does your family know?" Julian laughed bitterly. "My mother suggested I try experimental treatments in Switzerland. My father asked about my will. Neither asked how I felt." Despite everything, Naomi felt a pang of sympathy. Julian's wealthy family had always been cold. It was one of the things that had bonded them initially. Both coming from difficult backgrounds. "I'm sorry," she said honestly. "I don't want Micah to know," Julian added quickly. "I didn't come here for pity or to upset his life. I needed to see him, to know him even a little before." "So you're going to walk into his life, make him love you, and then what? Die on him?" The harshness returned to her voice. "I know it's selfish," Julian admitted, "but I also want to make things right. For both of you. I have money, Naomi, a lot of it. I want to set up trusts, make sure you never have to work 2 jobs again, make sure Micah can go to any college he wants. We don't need your money," she said automatically. It's not about need. It's about what should have been yours all along if I hadn't been a coward. They sat in silence for a long moment. 1 week, Naomi finally said. You can stay in Charleston for 1 week. Spend time with Micah, then we'll reevaluate. Relief washed over Julian's face. Thank you. Where are you staying? The Charleston Grand. Of course he was staying at the most expensive hotel in town. Some things never changed. If you're serious about knowing your son, be here tomorrow at 7 a.m. That's when he gets up for school. You can make him breakfast while I get ready for work. You're still going to work. Unlike you, I can't just abandon my responsibilities because I feel like it, she said more sharply than intended. Julian nodded, accepting the jab. I'll be here at 7. As he walked to his car, Naomi called after him, Julian? He turned, I'm sorry. About your heart, he gave her a sad smile. Ironic, isn't it? I finally figure out what matters, and now time is the one thing I don't have. After he drove away, Naomi sat alone on the porch for a long time. 8 years of anger and hurt couldn't disappear overnight. But watching Julian with Micah today had awakened feelings she thought were long buried. And now this, a death sentence. A ticking clock, 1 week, she told herself firmly. She'd give him 1 week with Micah, that was all. She wouldn't let herself feel anything more for Julian Maddox. Not again. But as she went to bed that night, the memory of his smile as he helped Micah with his robot kept returning to her mind, and the thought that soon that smile would be gone forever made her heart ache in a way she hadn't expected. It was going to be a very long week. True to his word, Julian arrived at 7 a.m. sharp the next morning. He looked different in the early light, more vulnerable somehow without his expensive suit as armor. He wore casual clothes and carried a bag of groceries. I brought everything for pancakes, he said when Naomi opened the door. They were always my favorite as a kid. Naomi nodded, still not fully awake and uncomfortable with how easily he was slipping back into their lives. Micah's getting dressed. Kitchen's that way. By the time Micah came out of his room, the smell of pancakes filled the small house. His eyes widened when he saw Julian at the stove, flipping a perfectly golden pancake. You're really here, he said, a note of surprise in his voice that broke Naomi's heart. How many times had her son been disappointed by promises not kept? Julian turned with a smile. I said I would be. Are you hungry? I made chocolate chip pancakes. That's my favorite. Micah exclaimed. Julian winked at him. Mine too. Naomi watched from the doorway as they ate breakfast together, Julian asking Micah about school and his interests. The boy was talking more than she'd heard in months, animated and excited. I have to get ready for work, she finally interrupted. Actually, Julian said, I was hoping you might take the day off. I thought maybe we could all go somewhere together. He hesitated before saying, family. I can't just skip work. Some of us have responsibilities, Naomi replied sharply. Please, Mom. Micah looked at her with hopeful eyes. Mrs. Thomas says family time is important for development. Julian raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Thomas? My school counselor, Micah explained. She says I'm very mature for my age. The pride in Julian's eyes was unmistakable. I bet you are, Naomi sighed. She'd already taken 1 day off. Another would mean less money for bills. But Micah looked so happy. One day, she relented. But that's it. I'm calling in now. While she made the calls, Julian and Micah cleaned up the kitchen together. She could hear them laughing, already developing inside jokes. It was both heartwarming and terrifying. An hour later, they were in Julian's luxury car heading to the Charleston Aquarium. Micah sat in the back, face pressed to the window in excitement. I've never been to the aquarium, he admitted. Julian looked shocked. Never? Tickets are expensive, Naomi said quietly. And I work weekends. A flash of guilt crossed Julian's face. He reached over and briefly touched her hand. I'm sorry. For everything. The unexpected touch sent warmth through her that she immediately tried to suppress. She pulled her hand away. At the aquarium, Micah ran from exhibit to exhibit, his natural curiosity in full bloom. Julian kept pace with him, explaining facts about each creature they saw. Naomi trailed behind, watching them with mixed emotions. Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? Julian told Micah at one exhibit. Like you might need, Micah responded innocently. Julian shot a panicked look at Naomi, who quickly stepped in. What do you mean, baby? Micah shrugged. Dad looks tired sometimes. Like when Mr. Peterson next door had his heart attack. The doctors gave him a new heart. Naomi and Julian exchanged worried glances. Had Micah somehow overheard them talking? I'm just a little out of shape, Julian said lightly. Too many business dinners. Micah seemed to accept this explanation and moved on to the next tank. Julian fell back beside Naomi. He's incredibly perceptive, he whispered. Always has been, she replied. He notices everything. After the aquarium, they had lunch at a casual restaurant where Micah regaled them with facts he'd learned about marine life. When he went to look at the dessert display, Julian turned to Naomi. Thank you for today, seeing him like this. It means everything to me. Don't thank me yet, Naomi warned. You've been here 2 days. Let's see if you're still around in a week. Julian's face grew serious. I'm not leaving again, Naomi, not by choice. The unspoken reality of his condition hung between them. How long have you known? About your heart? She asked quietly. 3 months. I tried all the specialists, pulled every string. The prognosis is always the same, and there's really no treatment. Julian hesitated. There's an experimental procedure in Switzerland. Very expensive, very risky. Might buy me more time, might kill me faster. Are you going to try it? I haven't decided. I wanted to meet Micah first. See you again. Before she could respond, Micah returned to the table, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. That evening, after Julian dropped them home with a promise to return the next day, Micah couldn't stop talking about his father. Dad knows so much about sharks, and he said maybe we could go fishing sometime. Can we, Mom, can we? Naomi tried to temper her son's excitement. We'll see, baby. Remember, your father is only visiting for a while. Micah's face fell. Why can't he stay with us? Tyler's dad stays with them. It's complicated. Micah. That's what adults always say when they don't want to explain something, he said with surprising insight. Naomi sighed and sat beside him on his bed. Your father and I, we have a difficult history. And he has his own life now, a big company in New York. But he came back for us, right? The hope in his voice was painful to hear. He came back to meet you, she said carefully. And that's a good thing. But I don't want you to expect too much. Because he's sick? Micah asked suddenly. Naomi froze. What do you mean? I heard you talking on the porch last night. About his heart. Is Dad going to die? Tears filled Naomi's eyes. She pulled Micah into a tight hug. Oh, baby, I don't know. He's sick, yes. But doctors can do amazing things these days. Is that why he came back now? Because he's running out of time? Out of the mouths of babes? Partly, yes. But also because he wanted to know you. He regrets leaving us. Micah was quiet for a moment. I'm glad he came back, even if it's not for long. Naomi kissed his forehead. Me too, baby. Me too. After Micah fell asleep, Naomi called Julian at his hotel. Micah knows, she said without preamble, about your condition. He overheard us talking. There was silence on the other end. How did he take it? Better than I expected. He's 8 going on 40 sometimes. She hesitated. Julian, if you're serious about being in his life, even for a short time, you need to be honest with him. No more half-truths. You're right, Julian agreed. I'll talk to him tomorrow properly. The next few days fell into a surprising routine. Julian would arrive early, help get Micah ready for school, then drive him there. While Naomi worked her nursing shift, Julian would use his laptop to run his company remotely from her kitchen table. He'd pick Micah up from school, help with homework, and have dinner ready when Naomi got home. It was domestic. It was confusing. It was everything she'd once dreamed of and now feared. On the 5th day, Naomi came home to find Julian and Micah building an elaborate robot together. They were so engrossed they didn't hear her enter. We need to adjust the motor here, Julian was saying, his hands guiding Micah's smaller ones. Like this? Micah asked. Perfect. You're a natural engineer, you know that? The pride in Julian's voice made Naomi's heart twist. This was what Micah had missed all these years. A father's guidance. A father's approval. Something smells good, she said, announcing her presence. They both looked up with identical expressions of guilt, like children caught doing something wrong. We were supposed to have dinner ready, Julian explained. But we got carried away with the robot. It moves, Mom. Micah demonstrated the small robot that walked across the table. Dad showed me how to program it with his laptop. Dad. The word hung in the air. It was the first time Micah had called Julian that to his face. The emotion that crossed Julian's features was raw and unguarded. "That's amazing, baby," Naomi said, ruffling Micah's hair. "Why don't you wash up while we get dinner on the table?" After Micah left, Julian turned to her. "I ordered takeout. It's in the oven staying warm. I hope that's okay." "It's fine." She paused. "I called you Dad." Julian nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. "I never thought I'd hear that. Never thought I'd deserve to." "You didn't," Naomi said bluntly. "For 8 years you didn't. And now?" She sighed. "Now, I don't know." "You're trying. I can see that." "I told him about my heart condition this afternoon," Julian said. "Properly. Answered all his questions. He's so smart, Naomi, so brave." "What did he say?" "He asked if it hurt. If I was scared. Then he said he'd make me a special robot to keep me company if I had to go to the hospital." Julian's voice broke slightly. "How did you raise such an amazing kid all alone?" "I didn't have a choice," she said simply. During dinner, Micah chatted excitedly about the science fair coming up at school. Dad said he might still be here for it. He could help me with my project. "Can he, Mom?" Naomi hesitated. The science fair was 3 weeks away. Their agreement was for 1 week. But seeing the excitement on Micah's face, she couldn't bear to deny him. "If your father can stay that long, then yes." Julian looked at her in surprise. "Really?" She nodded slightly. She was letting him in, inch by inch, despite all her fears. Later that night, after Micah was in bed, they sat on the porch again. The night was chilly, and Julian draped his jacket over her shoulders without asking. The gesture was so familiar, so reminiscent of their early days together, that it made her ache. "Thank you for what you said about the science fair," Julian said. "It means a lot to me." "Micah's happiness comes first," she replied. "Always." "I've been thinking about the treatment in Switzerland," Julian said after a moment. "I'm going to do it." Naomi turned to him in surprise. "What changed your mind?" "Micah, you these past few days." He looked at her directly. "I want more time, Naomi, even if it's a long shot." She nodded, a lump in her throat. "When would you go?" "In about 2 weeks. After the science fair." He hesitated. "I'd like to come back afterward. If you'll let me." "Let's take it 1 day at a time," she said. Unwilling to make promises she wasn't sure she could keep. They sat in comfortable silence, the night air filling the space between them with memories and possibilities. The peaceful moment was shattered by the sound of a car pulling up. A sleek black Mercedes stopped in front of the house, and an elegant older woman stepped out, her face a mask of disapproval. Julian stood abruptly. "Mother, what are you doing here?" Naomi felt her body tense. Eleanor Maddox had never made any secret of her disdain for Naomi, the scholarship girl from the wrong side of town who had trapped her precious son. "You haven't been answering my calls." "Julian?" Eleanor said coolly, her eyes taking in the modest house with obvious distaste. "And your assistant finally confessed where you've been hiding." "I haven't been hiding. I've been spending time with my son." Eleanor's gaze shifted to Naomi, who stood her ground despite feeling severely underdressed in her worn jeans and faded t-shirt. "Ms. Carter," Eleanor said with a tight smile. "Still living off my son's generosity, I see." "Mother," Julian warned. "Don't." "I haven't taken a penny from your son beyond court-mandated child support," Naomi replied evenly. "And I never asked for that." "How noble," Eleanor said sarcastically. "Julian, we need to talk privately. It's about your treatment options." Julian sighed. "Naomi knows about my condition, Mother." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Of course she does. Let me guess. She's already convinced you to change your will." "That's enough." Julian snapped with more force than Naomi had ever heard from him. "Naomi has never asked me for anything. Unlike you and Dad, who've been calling daily about my company shares. We're concerned about your future," Eleanor insisted. "My future is right here," Julian said firmly. "With my son. And with Naomi, if she'll have me." The statement hung in the air. Naomi stared at him in shock. Had he just implied what she thought he had? Eleanor's face hardened. "I see. Well, when this little family reunion fantasy falls apart, don't come crying to us." "You've made your choice, Julian." "Yes, I have. 8 years too late, but I have." Eleanor turned on her heel and got back into her car. Before driving away, she rolled down her window. "The board meeting is on Monday. If you're not there, they'll vote without you. And you know what that means?" After she left, Julian ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I'm sorry about that. What did she mean about the board meeting?" Naomi asked. "There's a vote on whether to sell the company to our biggest competitor. I've been fighting it for months. Without me there, the vote will likely go against me." "Then you should go," Naomi said. Julian looked surprised. "What? You built that company from nothing. Don't let them take it from you." "It's just business, Naomi. It doesn't matter anymore." "It does matter. It's your legacy." "For Micah," she took a deep breath. "Go to New York. Handle your business. We'll be here when you get back." The hope that lit up Julian's face was almost painful to see. "Do you mean that?" "I mean you should go to your meeting. The rest, we'll see." Julian stepped closer to her. For a moment, she thought he might try to kiss her, and she wasn't sure if she wanted him to or not. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. "Thank you," he said softly, "for giving me another chance with Micah. With you." "I haven't given you anything yet," she reminded him. "Don't get ahead of yourself," he smiled. "Always keeping me in check." "I've missed that." The next morning, Julian explained to Micah that he had to go to New York for a few days, but promised to be back for the weekend. Micah took the news better than expected, especially when Julian gave him a tablet to video chat every night. As they watched Julian's car drive away, Micah looked up at his mother. "He's coming back this time, isn't he?" Naomi put her arm around her son's shoulders. "I think he is, baby. I really think he is." But after Julian left, the house felt emptier than before. Naomi tried to ignore the feeling, throwing herself back into her work. She picked up extra shifts at both jobs, telling herself it was for the money, not to avoid the memories Julian had stirred up. 3 days later, she was cleaning the home of one of her wealthy clients when the television caught her attention. It was a business news channel, and Julian's face was on the screen. Tech billionaire Julian Maddox made a shocking announcement today, stepping down as CEO of Maddox Technologies just moments after securing a unanimous vote against selling the company to rival Tech Global. Naomi stopped cleaning to watch. In an emotional press conference, Maddox cited health concerns and a desire to focus on what truly matters, family, as his reasons for the unexpected move. Industry insiders are speculating about the future of the company, which has been Maddox's primary focus since founding it 9 years ago. The screen showed Julian at a podium, looking tired but determined. "Life is too short to spend it chasing the wrong things. I made that mistake once. I won't make it again." Naomi's phone rang. "It was Julian. Are you watching?" he asked without preamble. "Yes," she replied, her heart pounding. "Did you just give up your company?" "Not exactly. I'm still the majority shareholder. I just hired someone else to run the day-to-day operations." He paused. "I'm coming back tomorrow. For good this time if you'll have me. Juliet, just as Micah's father, if that's all you can offer," he said quickly. "I know I hurt you, Naomi. I know 8 years can't be erased in a week, but I want to try. For however long I have left." The raw emotion in his voice broke through her carefully constructed walls. "Come home," she said softly, not fully realizing what the word implied until it was out of her mouth. That night she took out the old photo album she kept hidden in her closet. Inside were pictures from before Julian left, before her heart broke, before she had to become both mother and father to Micah. There they were, so young and in love, Julian's arm around her at their high school graduation, both of them beaming with promise. She traced his face in the photo. Could people really change that much? Or was she setting herself and Micah up for more heartbreak? The next day she left work early to clean the house and make dinner, something she hadn't done in years. Micah helped, excited that his father was coming back. "Do you think he might stay with us sometimes?" Micah asked as they set the table. "Like overnight?" The question caught her off guard. "I don't know, baby. We'll see." "I'd like that," Micah said simply. "It feels right when he's here." Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. When Julian's car pulled up, Micah ran outside to greet him. Naomi watched from the doorway as Julian lifted his son in a bear hug, spinning him around. The joy on both their faces was undeniable. Julian approached the house, a small duffel bag in one hand, Micah's hand in the other. He stopped in front of Naomi, uncertainty in his eyes. "Welcome back," she said, stepping aside to let him in. As they ate dinner together, Micah excitedly showed Julian his progress on the science fair project. Julian listened attentively, offering suggestions and encouragement. It felt so natural, so right, that Naomi found herself smiling despite her lingering doubts. After Micah went to bed, Julian helped her clean up the kitchen. Their hands brushed as they both reached for the same plate, and the electricity between them was undeniable. "I meant what I said before," Julian said quietly, "about staying. About wanting to be a family for whatever time I have left. Julian, you can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to be fixed." "I know." He moved closer to her. "But I'm asking for the chance to try, to be the man I should have been 8 years ago. And what happens when you get tired of playing house? When your company needs you back? When your parents cut you off completely?" "None of that matters to me anymore," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "You and Micah are all that matters now." Despite herself, Naomi felt tears forming. "You broke my heart once. I can't go through that again. And more importantly, Micah can't. I know I don't deserve your trust, but I'm going to earn it back day by day." He reached out slowly and wiped a tear from her cheek. "I never stopped loving you, Naomi, even when I was too stupid and scared to admit it." The words she'd once longed to hear now filled her with equal parts hope and fear. Before she could respond, Julian swayed slightly, his face suddenly pale. "Julian?" she asked in alarm. "I'm fine," he said, but his breathing was labored. "Just a little dizzy." Naomi's nurse training kicked in. She helped him to the couch and checked his pulse, which was rapid and irregular. "Have you been taking your medication?" He nodded. "The flight and stress probably didn't help. I'm calling your doctor," she said firmly. "No hospitals," he protested weakly. "I don't want to scare Micah." Naomi hesitated, torn between medical sense and understanding his concern. "Fine, but you're staying here tonight where I can keep an eye on you. And if you get worse, I'm calling an ambulance, no arguments." Julian managed a small smile. "Yes, ma'am." She helped him to the small guest room that doubled as her home office. As she turned to leave, he caught her hand. "Thank you," he said softly, "for caring, even after everything." Naomi looked down at their joined hands. "Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow." But as she closed the door, she knew something had shifted between them. The walls she'd built around her heart were beginning to crumble, despite her best efforts to keep them intact. That night she checked on Julian several times, her nurse's instincts and personal feelings creating a confusing mix of emotions. Each time she found him sleeping peacefully, his breathing steady. The last time, near dawn, she allowed herself to sit beside him for a moment, studying the face she'd once known better than her own. He'd changed in 8 years. Faint lines around his eyes spoke of stress and responsibility. But asleep like this, he looked more like the boy she'd fallen in love with than the wealthy businessman who'd appeared on her doorstep a week ago. As if sensing her presence, Julian opened his eyes. For a moment, they just looked at each other in the dim light. "I used to dream about this," he whispered. "Waking up and seeing your face." "Julian—" "I know," he interrupted gently. "One step at a time." She nodded and stood to leave, but not before Julian caught her hand and pressed a soft kiss to her palm. The tender gesture sent warmth spreading through her entire body. "Sweet dreams, Naomi," he said softly, as she returned to her own room. Naomi knew that no matter how much she tried to deny it, her heart was already in danger again. And this time, when Julian left, whether by choice or fate, it might break beyond repair. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, dreamlike blur for Naomi. Julian moved into a small apartment just 5 minutes away, insisting he needed to give her space while still being close to Micah. Every morning he showed up with breakfast. Every evening he joined them for dinner. On weekends he took them on simple outings, the park, the movies, a local festival. For Micah, it was a dream come true. For Naomi, it was emotional whiplash. "You don't have to cook dinner every night," she told Julian one evening as he prepared pasta in her kitchen. "I'm perfectly capable of feeding my son." "Our son," he corrected gently. "And I know you're capable. But you work so hard. Let someone take care of you for a change." The words hit a nerve. How long had it been since anyone had taken care of her? Since she could lean on someone else, even a little. "I don't need taking care of," she said automatically. Julian turned from the stove to look at her. "Everyone needs taking care of sometimes. Naomi, even you." Before she could respond, Micah bounded into the kitchen, proudly carrying his science fair project, a working model of a sustainable energy system, that he and Julian had built together. "It's finished," he announced. "Dad helped me with the solar panels. Do you think I'll win, Mom?" "It's certainly the best project I've ever seen," she said, genuinely impressed. "Dad says we should practice my presentation after dinner," Micah continued. "The fair is tomorrow." Julian winked at him. "First prize or bust, right, buddy?" The casual domesticity of it all was both wonderful and terrifying. This was what a family should be. This was everything she'd dreamed of back when she was young and naive. But now she knew better than to trust in happy endings. That night, after Micah went to bed, Naomi found Julian on the porch swing, looking up at the stars. She sat beside him, keeping a careful distance. "Micah's so excited about tomorrow," she said. Julian nodded. "Me too. I never thought I'd get to be part of something like this." "You've been good with him," Naomi admitted. "Better than I expected. It's easy." "He's amazing." Julian turned to her. "Like his mother." Naomi looked away, uncomfortable with the intensity in his eyes. "Julian, we need to talk about your treatment in Switzerland. When do you leave?" "Next week. Monday morning." "How long will you be gone?" "At least 3 weeks. Maybe longer, depending on how my body responds." She nodded, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in her stomach. "And the success rate?" Julian hesitated. "About 40% chance of extending my life by a year or more. 60% chance it does nothing, or—" He trailed off. "Makes things worse," she finished for him. "Yes." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his mortality heavy between them. "Micah will miss you," she said finally. "Just Micah?" Julian asked softly. Naomi met his gaze. "What do you want me to say, Julian? That I'll miss you too? That I'm terrified you'll go to Switzerland and never come back? That in just 2 weeks you've managed to make yourself essential to us again? Is that how you feel?" "It doesn't matter how I feel. What matters is protecting Micah and myself." Julian reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. "It matters to me, Naomi. Everything about you matters to me." The sincerity in his voice broke something open inside her. "I can't do this again," she whispered. "I can't watch you leave us twice." "I'm not leaving by choice this time," he reminded her gently, "aren't you? You're choosing a risky treatment that might kill you faster. I'm choosing to fight for more time with you and Micah." The distinction hung in the air between them. Naomi knew he was right, but the fear of losing him again, this time permanently, was overwhelming. "I should get to bed," she said, standing abruptly. "Tomorrow's a big day." Julian didn't try to stop her, but his eyes followed her all the way to the door. The next day was the science fair. Micah was a bundle of nerves and excitement as they set up his project. Julian stayed by his side, offering encouragement and last-minute tips. Naomi watched them from a distance, her heart full. Mrs. Jenkins appeared beside her. "Never thought I'd see the day," the older woman commented. "Julian Maddox playing daddy after all these years." "He's trying," Naomi said defensively. Mrs. Jenkins studied her face. "And what about you, honey? Are you falling for him again?" "Hey, it's not like that," Naomi insisted. "Sure looks like it from where I'm standing. Just be careful. Men like that don't change their spots." Before Naomi could respond, the judges approached Micah's booth. Julian stepped back, giving his son the spotlight. Micah's presentation was flawless, articulate, passionate, and knowledgeable. The pride on Julian's face was unmistakable. 2 hours later, Micah stood on stage accepting the first-place trophy, beaming with accomplishment. When he thanked "my dad who helped me believe in myself," Julian's eyes filled with tears. He squeezed Naomi's hand without thinking, and she let him. That night, they celebrated with pizza and ice cream at home. Micah couldn't stop talking about the competition and his win. Julian couldn't stop looking at Naomi. After Micah went to bed, still clutching his trophy, Julian helped Naomi clean up. "He was amazing today," Julian said. "Yes, he was." "Naomi, there's something I need to ask you." Julian's serious tone made her pause. "If something happens to me in Switzerland, if the treatment doesn't work—" "Don't," she interrupted. "Don't talk like that. We have to be realistic. I've updated my will. Half of everything goes to Micah in a trust. The other half goes to you." Naomi's eyes widened. "Julian, I don't want your money." "I never did, I know. That's one of the reasons I love you." The words slipped out so naturally that Julian didn't even seem to notice. "But I need to know you and Micah will be taken care of." No more double shifts, no more struggling to make ends meet. Promise me you'll accept it. Julian, promise me, Naomi. His eyes were intense. Let me do this one thing right. She swallowed hard. Fine, I promise. Relief crossed his face. Thank you. But you're going to be fine, she added firmly. You're going to get that treatment and it's going to work. Julian smiled sadly. I wish I had your faith. You gave up everything for this second chance, she reminded him. Your job, your lifestyle. The universe owes you some extra time. I didn't give up anything important, he said softly. What I found was worth infinitely more. The sincerity in his voice made her breath catch. Before she could respond, Julian's phone rang. He checked the screen and frowned. It's my mother. I should take this. He stepped outside and Naomi busied herself with wiping down the counters. Through the window, she could see Julian pacing, his expression growing increasingly agitated. When he came back inside, his face was tight with anger. What's wrong? She asked. My parents are trying to block my treatment in Switzerland. They've contacted the clinic, suggested I'm not mentally competent to make medical decisions. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. They're saying my sudden lifestyle changes are evidence of psychological instability. Can they do that? They're trying. The clinic called to verify I still want the treatment. They've also frozen some of my assets, claiming they need to protect the family interests. Naomi felt a surge of anger on his behalf. Why would they do that? You're their son, Julian laughed bitterly. To them, I'm just the keeper of the Maddox fortune. They've never forgiven me for building my own company instead of joining the family business. And they certainly never approved of my relationship with you. What are you going to do? Fight them, of course. I have other accounts they can't touch, and my lawyers are better than theirs. He sighed heavily. I'm sorry to bring this drama to your doorstep. It's not your fault, Naomi said. She hesitated, then added, maybe you should stay here tonight. You look exhausted and it's late. Julian looked surprised by the offer. Are you sure? The guest room is still made up from last time. It's just practical, but they both knew it was more than that. It was another small step toward something neither was ready to name. That night, Naomi found herself unable to sleep. She kept thinking about Julian just down the hall, about his parents trying to control him even now, about the treatment that might save him or speed his death. Around midnight, she heard a noise from the kitchen. She found Julian there, taking pills with a glass of water. Sorry if I woke you, he said. Just taking my evening medication. How many pills do you take a day? She asked, her nurse's curiosity taking over. 8. Different times, different purposes. Blood thinners, beta blockers, antiarrhythmics. Naomi stepped closer, medical training overtaking personal boundaries. Let me see your pill organizer. Julian handed it over without protest. She examined the medications, her professional knowledge kicking in. This combination can cause severe fatigue. Are you experiencing that? Sometimes, he admitted. More lately. And dizziness? Shortness of breath with mild exertion. Julian's eyes met hers. You're not my nurse, Naomi. No, but I am a nurse. And I care about... She stopped herself. About what? He prompted softly. About you not keeling over in front of Micah, she finished lamely. Julian smiled. Of course. They stood in the darkened kitchen, the small space between them charged with unspoken feelings. Julian was the first to break the silence. We should both get some sleep. I promised Micah I'd take him fishing tomorrow. Right, good night then. But neither moved. Their eyes remained locked, years of history and new possibilities hanging in the air between them. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Julian leaned closer. Naomi knew she should step back, maintain the barriers she'd worked so hard to build. Instead, she found herself meeting him halfway. The kiss was gentle at first, hesitant, a question more than a statement. But when Naomi didn't pull away, Julian deepened it, his hand coming up to cradle her face. 8 years of separation melted away in an instant. Her body remembered his touch as if it were yesterday. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Julian rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you again, he whispered. Reality came crashing back. Naomi stepped away, her fingertips touching her lips in shock at her own actions. This is a mistake, she said. We can't do this, Julian. Why not? Because I hurt you before? Because I'm sick now. Tell me why, Naomi. Both. Either, I don't know. She wrapped her arms around herself. I have to think about Micah. Micah would be thrilled. Until you leave again. One way or another, the harsh truth hung between them. Julian flinched as if she'd struck him. I'm fighting to stay, Naomi, with everything I have. I know, she said softly, but that might not be enough. The next morning there was a tension between them that hadn't been there before. They were overly polite with each other, careful not to touch, to brush against each other in the small kitchen. Micah, absorbed in excitement about the fishing trip, didn't notice. Julian took Micah fishing as promised, and Naomi used the time to think. She found herself cleaning the already spotless house, an old habit when she was stressed. By the time they returned, sunburned and happy with stories of the 3 fish they'd caught and released, she had made a decision. That night, after Micah was in bed, Naomi found Julian on the porch again. We need to talk, she said, sitting beside him. That sounds ominous. It's about last night. The kiss. Julian tensed. I'm sorry if I overstepped. You didn't. It takes 2 to kiss, Julian. She took a deep breath. But it can't happen again. Not now, not with everything so uncertain. He nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to be clear on this. For Micah's sake, for all our sakes, we need to keep things simple. You're his father. I'm his mother. That's it. And after Switzerland? If the treatment works, then we'll talk again. But right now, Micah needs stability, not confusion. Julian was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he finally said. As always. The rest of the week passed in careful coordination. Julian kept his promise to respect her boundaries, but Naomi caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. The longing in his eyes matched the ache in her own heart. The day before Julian was scheduled to leave for Switzerland, Micah grew clingy and emotional. Why can't I come with you? He asked his father for the 10th time. It's not that kind of trip, buddy. It's a hospital stay. Very boring. But what if something happens to you? What if you don't come back? Julian knelt to meet his son's eyes. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. But even if it did, I need you to know something. He placed his hand over Micah's heart. I'll always be right here. Nothing can change that. Not distance, not time, nothing. Micah threw his arms around his father's neck. Promise you'll call every day? Every single day that I can. And your mom has all the contact information for my doctors. She'll know exactly what's happening with me. That night, Julian took them both out to dinner at a nice restaurant. Not overly fancy, but nicer than anywhere Naomi had been in years. Micah was on his best behavior, clearly understanding the importance of the evening. As they waited for dessert, Julian handed Micah a small wrapped package. What's this? Micah asked. Open it and see. Inside was a beautiful watch, adult-sized but not ostentatious. It's too big, Micah said, confused. That's because it's for when you're older, Julian explained. My father gave me a watch when I was your age. It's a tradition. But I want ours to be different. He turned the watch over to show an inscription on the back. Time is precious. Spend it with those you love. Dad, tears filled Micah's eyes. I'll keep it forever. Julian then handed Naomi a small box. This is for you. Just a thank you for letting me into Micah's life. Into your life, she opened it hesitantly. Inside was a simple silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny heart made of rose gold. Julian, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. It's not expensive, I promise. And it's not romantic. It's gratitude, Naomi, for raising our son so well, for giving me a second chance I don't deserve. Put that way, she couldn't refuse. She let Julian fasten it around her wrist, trying to ignore the warmth of his fingers against her skin. Later that night, after they returned home and Micah went to bed, Julian lingered at the door. This is it, I guess, he said. My flight leaves at 6 a.m. You'll call when you land, Naomi asked. Of course. And I've given you access to my medical records. The doctors will update you directly if I'm unable to. The reality of what he was facing hit her anew. Without thinking, she stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Julian froze in surprise, then wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if she might disappear. Come back to us, she whispered against his chest. Just come back. I'll do my best, he promised, his voice rough with emotion. When they pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes. Julian reached out to touch her face, then stopped himself, remembering her boundaries. Goodbye, Naomi. Not goodbye, she corrected. See you later, he smiled sadly. See you later. After Julian left, Naomi sat alone on the porch swing, fingering the bracelet on her wrist. Despite all her efforts to keep her heart guarded, Julian had found his way back in. And now, just when she was beginning to believe in second chances, he might be taken from her again. This time forever. The days after Julian left for Switzerland were harder than Naomi had expected. Micah was subdued, checking his tablet constantly for messages from his father. Julian called daily as promised, but the calls were brief and obviously exhausting for him. The pre-treatment testing is intense, he explained on the third day. They're mapping my heart, running genetics tests, preparing my body for the procedure. And how are you feeling? Naomi asked, trying to keep the worry from her voice. Tired, but hopeful. His voice softened. I miss you both so much. We miss you too, she admitted, no longer fighting the truth of her feelings. The actual procedure was scheduled for day 5. The night before, Julian's call was more serious. If something goes wrong tomorrow, he began. Julian, don't. I have to say this, Naomi, please. He took a deep breath. If something goes wrong, I want you to know that these past few weeks have been the happiest of my life. Getting to know Micah, being near you again, it was worth everything. Even if this is all the time I get. Tears streamed down Naomi's face. It's not. You're going to have so much more time. I hope so. But if not, promise me you'll tell Micah how much I love him. Every day, I promise, she whispered. And Naomi, I never stopped loving you. Not for one day in 8 years. Before she could respond, he continued quickly. I know that doesn't change the past. I know I hurt you in ways I can never fully make right. But I needed you to know. Julian, she started but couldn't find the words. You don't have to say anything. Just know that you were loved, completely and utterly loved. After they hung up, Naomi sat on her bed, the bracelet Julian had given her clutched in her hand. For 8 years she'd told herself she hated him. For 8 years she'd locked away the love she once felt, convincing herself it was dead and buried. But it wasn't. It had been there all along, waiting for the moment when she was brave enough to acknowledge it again. The next day was the longest of Naomi's life. Julian was in surgery for 9 hours. She kept her phone with her constantly, jumping every time it buzzed. She tried to stay strong for Micah, assuring him that everything would be fine even as doubt gnawed at her own heart. Finally, at 7 p.m., her phone rang with an international number. Miss Carter, a heavily accented voice said, This is Dr. Lindstrom from Zurich Heart Institute. I am calling about Mr. Maddox. Naomi's heart stopped. Is he? The procedure was complex but successful. Mr. Maddox is in recovery now. He is not yet conscious, but his vital signs are stable. Relief flooded through her so intensely she had to sit down. He's going to be okay? It is too soon to make long-term predictions, but the initial signs are very positive. The damaged tissue was successfully replaced with the bioengineered cells. If his body does not reject them, we expect significant improvement in cardiac function. When will you know if his body is accepting the cells? The critical period is the next 72 hours. We will keep him in induced coma during this time to minimize stress on his system. After getting all the details from the doctor, Naomi called Micah to her. Daddy's surgery went well, she told him. He's sleeping now, but the doctors are very happy. Micah's face lit up. So he's going to get better? We hope so, baby. We need to keep praying and sending him good thoughts. That night, Naomi did something she hadn't done in years. She prayed. Not just a quick, desperate plea, but a real prayer. Heartfelt and raw. Please, she whispered into the darkness. Please let him come back to us. 3 days passed in anxious waiting. The doctors called with updates twice daily. Julian's body wasn't rejecting the new cells. His heart rhythm was stabilizing. They were preparing to bring him out of the coma. On the 4th day after the surgery, Naomi's phone rang just as she was getting ready for work. Naomi. Julian's voice was weak but unmistakable. Tears sprang to her eyes. Julian, you're awake! Barely. He laughed softly, then coughed. But yes, the doctors say it worked, Naomi. My heart is accepting the new cells. They're already seeing improvement in function. Oh, thank God, she breathed, sinking onto her bed in relief. How's Micah? Missing you like crazy. He'll be so happy to hear your voice. I miss him too. And you, Naomi? So much. There was a pause, both of them absorbing the reality that he had survived, that there was hope now where before there had been only resignation. When can you come home? She asked. The doctors want me here for at least 2 more weeks. Monitoring, physical therapy, medication adjustments. But then, If all goes well, we'll be waiting, she promised. Over the next 2 weeks, Julian grew stronger. His calls became longer, his voice more energetic. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, telling him that while the procedure wasn't a cure, it could extend his life by years rather than months if he took care of himself. Meanwhile, Naomi found herself planning for his return. She cleaned out the guest room properly, making it more comfortable. She even splurged on new sheets and a better mattress, a surprising extravagance for her usually frugal self. Micah noticed the changes with the perceptiveness of a child who misses nothing. "Is Dad going to live with us when he gets back?" he asked one night as Naomi tucked him in. "We haven't discussed that yet," she said carefully. "But you want him to, don't you? You smile different when you talk to him now. Out of the mouths of babes. It's complicated, Micah." "Why?" "You love him. He loves you. We're a family. If only adult relationships were that simple." But maybe, Naomi thought, they could be. Maybe she was the one making things complicated. The day Julian was scheduled to return, Naomi took off work to pick him up at the airport. She left Micah with Mrs. Jenkins, wanting to see Julian alone first, to gauge his condition without worrying their son. She waited nervously at the arrival gate, scanning the passengers as they emerged. And then there he was, thinner, moving more carefully, but unmistakably healthier than when he'd left. His face lit up when he saw her, and without thinking she ran to him. Julian dropped his carry-on bag just in time to catch her in his arms. He held her tightly, burying his face in her hair. "You're really here," she whispered. "You came back." "I promised I would," he said softly. When they pulled apart, both were crying. Julian wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "There's something I need to tell you," he said seriously. Fear instantly gripped her. "What is it?" "Did the doctors find something else?" "No, nothing like that." He took her hands in his. "While I was in Switzerland, I had a lot of time to think. About my life, my choices, what matters most." Naomi held her breath, unsure where this was going. "I realized I've been going about this all wrong. Trying to make up for lost time. Trying to squeeze a lifetime of fatherhood into whatever time I have left. Julian, let me finish, please." He squeezed her hands gently. "I don't want to be just Micah's father who visits. I don't want to be your friend who happens to be your ex-husband. I want us to be a real family, Naomi. The family we should have been all along." Her heart raced. "What are you saying?" Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I'm saying I love you. I've always loved you. And if you'll have me, I want to spend whatever time I have left, whether it's 1 year or 50, being your husband and Micah's father." Properly, this time. He opened the box to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "Will you marry me, Naomi, again?" She stared at him in shock, 1,000 thoughts racing through her mind. It was too fast. It was crazy. It was everything she'd secretly been hoping for. "Julian, your family. I've cut ties with them," he said firmly. "They tried to prevent my treatment. They threatened to contest my will if I left anything to you and Micah. That was the last straw. I have new lawyers drawing up paperwork to remove them from my life completely. Your company is being run by people I trust. I'll still consult, but I don't need to be in New York. I can work from Charleston. Be home every night for dinner. Your condition, you may kill me next year, or I might get 20 more years. No one knows, but I know I don't want to waste another day not being with you and Micah." His eyes were earnest, vulnerable. "I understand if you need time, if you're not ready, but I had to ask. I had to try." Naomi looked at the ring, then at Julian. 8 years ago, he had been a boy running from responsibility. Now he was a man running toward it. The change was as undeniable as the love she still felt for him. "Yes," she said softly, then more firmly. "Yes." Julian's face broke into a smile of pure joy. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close for a kiss that promised a future neither of them had dared to imagine just months ago. When they broke apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "Let's go home," he said. "Our son is waiting." As they walked hand in hand through the airport, Naomi glanced down at her ring, then at the man beside her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Julian's heart might fail again. The treatment might not last. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. They had Micah. They had a second chance, and this time she was going to embrace it with both hands. The drive home from the airport was filled with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. Julian held Naomi's hand the entire way, as if afraid she might disappear if he let go. "Are we really doing this?" she asked, still in disbelief. "Getting married again?" Julian smiled, his eyes never leaving her face. "Unless you've changed your mind in the last 20 minutes. No," she assured him. "It's just so much has happened so fast, too fast." She thought about it, then shook her head. "No, when you know, you know. And despite everything, I think I've always known." As they pulled up to the house, Julian squeezed her hand. "Should we tell Micah right away?" "Are you kidding? He'll be over the moon." The moment they walked through the door, Micah launched himself at Julian, nearly knocking him over with the force of his hug. "Dad, you're back! Are you better now? Did they fix your heart?" Julian knelt down to his son's level, wincing slightly at the movement. "They made it better, buddy. Not perfect, but better." "Is it still going to—" Micah couldn't finish the sentence. "The doctors say I have more time now," Julian explained gently. "A lot more time if I'm careful. And I plan to be very careful because I have something very important to do." "What's that?" Julian glanced up at Naomi, who nodded encouragingly. "Well, I asked your mum a very important question at the airport." He took Naomi's hand, the engagement ring now visible on her finger. "And she said yes." Micah's eyes widened as he looked from the ring to his parents' faces. "You're getting married." "For real?" "For real," Naomi confirmed. The boy's face split into the biggest smile they'd ever seen. He threw his arms around both of them, pulling them into a group hug. "We're going to be a real family. Just like I wished." Mrs. Jenkins, who had been watching from the doorway, wiped a tear from her eye. "Well, I'll be." Miracles do happen. Later that night, after Micah had finally gone to bed, too excited to fall asleep easily, Julian and Naomi sat together on the porch swing, his arm around her shoulders. "I was thinking," Julian said, "maybe we could get married here, in the backyard. Something small and simple." Naomi looked surprised. "Not a big fancy wedding? I thought that would be more your style." "My style is whatever makes you happy." He kissed her temple. "Besides, I've done the whole society wedding thing before. It wasn't all it's cracked up to be. Our first wedding was at the courthouse," Naomi remembered. "Your parents refused to come, and we were so nervous. We dropped the rings." They both laughed at the memory. The pain of what came after temporarily forgotten. "A backyard wedding sounds perfect," Naomi agreed. "But where will we live? Your apartment is too small for the three of us, and this place—" Julian hesitated. "I was going to surprise you, but—" "I bought a house. Just 10 minutes from here, close to Micah's school. It's not a mansion or anything, but it has 4 bedrooms, a nice yard, room to grow." "You bought a house without telling me?" Naomi pulled back to look at him. "I can sell it if you don't like it," he said quickly. "I just wanted to have a place ready for us. Somewhere we could start fresh." She shook her head in amazement. "You really have thought of everything, haven't you?" "I've had 8 years to think about all the ways I messed up," Julian said seriously. "I don't intend to make the same mistakes again." The next morning, Julian moved his few belongings from the apartment to Naomi's house. "Just until after the wedding," he insisted when she offered to let him take the guest room. "I want to do things right this time." News of their engagement spread quickly through their small community. Most people were supportive, though Naomi overheard whispers when she went shopping. "Think she's just after his money now that he's sick. I heard he left her for a model the first time. Bet it won't last 6 months." She tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the future she and Julian were building. 3 days after Julian's return, they visited the house he'd bought. It was a charming colonial-style home, with a wraparound porch and mature oak trees in the yard. Inside it was spacious but not ostentatious, exactly the kind of home Naomi would have chosen herself. "Do you like it?" Julian asked anxiously as they toured the rooms. "It's perfect," she said honestly. "But Julian, how are we going to afford this?" "I know you have money, but with your medical bills—" "Don't worry about that," he assured her. "I sold some investments before the treatment. We are set for life, Naomi. You never have to work 2 jobs again unless you want to." The reality of how drastically her life was changing hit her suddenly. "I don't know if I can get used to that. Not struggling, not counting every penny." Julian took her hands. "You've carried the weight alone for so long. Let me help carry it now." Micah loved the new house, especially when Julian showed him the room that would be his. It's twice as big as my old room, he exclaimed, already planning where his things would go. But the most emotional moment came when Julian showed them the fourth bedroom, set up as a home office. I thought you might want to go back to school, he told Naomi. Finish your nursing degree, or even medical school like you always wanted. Tears filled her eyes. Julian, you put your dreams on hold for Micah, for us. Now it's your turn. As the wedding approached, Julian's health continued to improve. The color returned to his face, and his energy levels increased. He still took a regimen of medications and had to rest more than before, but the immediate crisis had passed. The doctors are very pleased with my progress, he told Naomi after a follow-up appointment. They're saying I might have years, not months. Maybe even decades if the treatment continues to work this well. That's wonderful news, she said, hugging him tightly. Did they say anything about children? Julian pulled back to look at her. Children? As in more children? Naomi nodded, suddenly shy. I know it's probably not possible, with your condition. Actually, Julian said slowly, they didn't specifically rule it out. They said to avoid stress and overexertion, but they never said we couldn't try. The possibility hung in the air between them, both exciting and terrifying. Would you want that? Julian asked. Another child? I always wanted Micah to have siblings, Naomi admitted. But only if your health can handle it. Julian kissed her softly. Let's talk to the specialists first. Make sure it's safe, then we'll see. 1 week before the wedding, disaster struck. A sleek black car pulled up outside Naomi's house, just as they were having dinner. Julian tensed when he saw it. My parents, he said grimly. Stay inside with Micah. But Naomi stood firm. No, we faced them together. Eleanor and Richard Maddox were as intimidating as Naomi remembered. Eleanor's cold eyes took in Naomi's simple home with obvious disdain. Richard, tall and imposing, looked at his son with disappointment. This has gone on long enough, Julian, Richard said without preamble. This charade stops now. It's not a charade, Dad. This is my life. My family, Eleanor sniffed. Family? A woman you abandoned once before and a child you barely know. Say a woman I love and a son I intend to be there for the rest of my life, Julian corrected firmly. Which might not be very long if you continue this. Foolishness, Richard warned. The board is concerned about your mental state. They're considering invoking the health clause in your contract. Julian laughed without humor. You mean the clause that gives them the right to buy out my shares at below market value if I'm deemed mentally incompetent? Good luck with that. My doctors have declared me of sound mind. The Switzerland clinic was experimental at best, dangerous at worst, Eleanor said. We've consulted specialists who say the treatment might have cognitive side effects. Impaired judgment, emotional instability. Naomi felt anger rising within her. There's nothing wrong with Julian's judgment. He's chosen to be with people who actually care about him, not his money or his company. Eleanor turned her cold gaze on Naomi. And I suppose you're one of those people? After he left you pregnant and alone, you've suddenly forgiven everything because… What, love? She practically spat the word. Julian stepped forward, his voice dangerously quiet. That's enough, Mother. You will not speak to Naomi that way. Not ever. We're trying to protect you, Richard insisted. From her, from yourself. No, you're trying to protect your access to my money, to my company. Well, it won't work. Julian's voice was steady, resolved. I've already signed the papers. Half of my estate is in an irrevocable trust for Micah. The other half goes to Naomi. My shares in the company will be managed by trustees I've personally selected, none of whom are named Maddox. Eleanor's face paled. And you can't do that. I already have. Julian took Naomi's hand. Now, unless you're here to wish us well on our upcoming marriage, I think it's time for you to leave. You'll regret this, Richard warned. When she spent all your money and moved on to her next target. At that moment, Micah appeared in the doorway, his young face serious. You shouldn't talk about my mom like that. She's the best person I know. Eleanor and Richard looked startled at the child's intervention. And my dad's the second best, Micah continued, moving to stand between his parents. If you don't like them together, that's your problem. Out of the mouths of babes. Julian put his hand on Micah's shoulder, pride evident in his expression. You heard my son, he said quietly. Please leave now. After the Maddoxes departed, their faces tight with anger, Julian knelt to hug Micah. Thank you for standing up for us, buddy. They're not very nice, Micah observed. Are they really your parents? By blood, yes. But family is more than blood, Micah. It's about love and support and being there for each other. Micah nodded solemnly. Like we are. Exactly like we are. Despite the confrontation with Julian's parents, the wedding preparations continued. They kept it simple. Just close friends, Naomi's small family, and a few of Julian's colleagues who had supported him through his illness. The night before the wedding, Naomi found Julian sitting alone on the porch, looking thoughtful. Having second thoughts, she asked, only half joking. He pulled her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her. Never. Just thinking about how lucky I am. How close I came to missing all of this. We both got a second chance, she said softly. Let's make the most of it. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. They transformed the small backyard with simple white flowers and twinkling lights. Naomi wore a knee-length ivory dress, nothing fancy but beautiful in its simplicity. Julian wore a light grey suit, no tie, casual but elegant. Micah, dressed in a miniature version of Julian's suit, proudly carried the rings. Mrs. Jenkins sniffled in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Julian kissed Naomi with such tenderness that several guests wiped away tears. I now present to you for the second and final time, Mr. and Mrs. Maddox, the minister announced. At the reception, Julian pulled Naomi aside. I have something for you, he said, handing her a small envelope. Inside was a deed to a building in downtown Charleston. What's this? She asked, confused. It's a clinic, Julian explained. Or it will be. A free clinic for underserved communities. I thought maybe, when you finish your degree, you might want to run it. Make a difference in a way that money alone can't. Naomi was speechless. It was exactly the kind of dream she'd abandoned when she got pregnant with Micah. A way to help people who couldn't afford proper health care. Julian. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it. No pressure, no timeline. Just something to think about. She kissed him, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. Thank you for understanding me so well. The next few months passed in a blur of happiness. They moved into the new house, settling into a routine that felt both novel and somehow familiar. Julian worked remotely, consulting for his company but never traveling more than absolutely necessary. Naomi enrolled in nursing classes, determined to finish her degree. Micah thrived with both parents under one roof. His grades, already good, became excellent. His natural scientific curiosity blossomed with Julian's encouragement and resources. 6 months after the wedding, Julian's doctors delivered encouraging news. The experimental treatment was holding. His heart function had stabilized at nearly 70% of normal. It's not a cure, the specialist reminded them. But with proper medication and care, there's no reason you can't have many good years ahead. Julian squeezed Naomi's hand. How many years? The doctor smiled. Let's just say I wouldn't be surprised to see you at Micah's college graduation. It was more than they had dared to hope for. That night they celebrated with a special dinner, just the three of them. I have news too, Naomi said as they ate dessert. I got my acceptance letter today. I'm officially in the accelerated medical program for next fall. Mum's going to be a doctor, Micah exclaimed. Julian raised his glass. To Dr. Maddox, I always knew you could do it. 2 weeks later, Julian surprised Naomi with another announcement. I've been talking to my doctors about expanding our family. Naomi's heart skipped a beat. And? They say with my current heart function, it would be safe to try. If we want to. Do you want to? She asked cautiously. Julian's smile was answer enough. I missed so much with Micah. The chance to be there from the beginning. His voice trailed off, thick with emotion. 3 months later, Naomi confirmed what she'd been suspecting. She was pregnant. The joy on Julian's face when she told him made all the morning sickness worth it. A brother or sister, Micah said thoughtfully when they shared the news. I hope it's a sister. Boys are boring, Julian laughed. We'll love whoever comes, right, buddy? As Micah's 9th birthday approached, they planned a small celebration in their backyard. Nothing extravagant, just family and a few of Micah's school friends. The morning of the birthday, Julian found Naomi in the kitchen, her hands resting on her slightly rounded belly. Everything okay? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Perfect, she assured him, just thinking about how much has changed in a year. Last birthday it was just Micah and me in that tiny house. I was working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. And now, Julian prompted gently. Now we're here, together, with another baby on the way. She turned in his arms to face him. It's like a dream. The best kind of dream, he agreed. The kind that comes true. Later that day, as they gathered around the birthday cake, 1 candle, 1 small backyard, but this time with everyone there, Naomi watched Julian help Micah blow out his candle. "Make a wish," Julian told his son. Micah shook his head. "I don't need to. I already got what I wished for last year." "What was that?" Naomi asked. Micah looked from his mother to his father, his young face serious beyond his years. "A real family. All of us together." Julian's eyes met Naomi's over their son's head. In that moment, they both knew the same truth. Some second chances are worth waiting for. Some broken things, when mended, become stronger at the broken places. And some loves, even after 8 years of silence, never truly die. As they cut the cake and passed around slices, the future stretched before them, uncertain in some ways, but secure in the things that mattered most. They had each other. They had their children, born and unborn. They had time, perhaps not as much as some, but enough to make memories, to love deeply, to live fully. In the end, that was all anyone could ask for. A second chance at happiness, a family made whole again, and the promise of many more birthdays to come, each candle a reminder of how precious life truly is when spent with those you love. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn day, Naomi went into labor. Julian was by her side every moment, his face a mixture of concern and wonder, as their daughter came into the world. Red-faced and screaming, "She's perfect," he whispered, tears streaming down his face as he held her for the first time. Absolutely perfect. They named her Hope, a testament to the feeling that had brought them back together, that had carried them through illness and uncertainty, that continued to light their way forward. When they brought her home, Micah peered into the bundle of blankets with curious eyes. "She's so tiny," he marveled. "But don't worry. I'll teach her everything I know when she gets bigger." That night, after both children were asleep, Julian and Naomi stood in the nursery doorway, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" she asked softly. "When you showed up on my doorstep that day?" Julian shook his head. "I hoped, but I didn't dare believe it was possible. I thought I hated you," she admitted, "for so many years. But I think maybe I just hated that I still loved you." He kissed her temple. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret giving me a second chance." "How long will that be?" she asked, the old fear briefly surfacing. "The rest of your life." Julian turned her to face him, his eyes serious but peaceful. "The doctors say maybe 10 years, maybe 20, maybe more as medicine advances. But Naomi, whether it's 1 day or 50 years, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're together now, that every day counts, that we love each other and our children with everything we have." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Every day counts." "Every single one," he agreed, drawing her close. Outside their window, stars dotted the night sky, countless points of light in the darkness. Inside, the house was quiet, except for the soft breathing of their children and the steady, determined beating of Julian's heart, imperfect but stronger than anyone had dared to hope. Second chances didn't come often in life. But when they did, Naomi now knew, they were worth every risk, every fear, every moment of uncertainty. Because sometimes what breaks can be mended. What is lost can be found. And love, true love, never really dies. It just waits for the right moment to come home.